Good afternoon. It's Maundy Thursday, and today we're looking at our reading for this Easter Sunday from Paul's letter to the Colossians. Now, this is another one of the shorter books in the New Testament, but it is just packed full of theology. In fact, it's packed full of Christology, Paul's understanding and teachings of who Jesus Christ is. And this was important because there was a lot going on in the city of Colossae and with this early Christian church. And Paul is actually writing to settle a couple of problems. And we have to understand about this city of Colossae in order to understand where these problems came from. Now, Colossae was a fairly large city in what is now modern-day Turkey. If you were going from Jerusalem to Rome and you were going through Turkey, you would pass it before you went through the city of Ephesus, which of course was the setting for Paul's letter to the church there, the Ephesians. And so Colossae was a city that was founded with a whole bunch of different groups of people, a multicultural center. What happened is Roman armies would often conquer areas. They would move whole groups of people from that conquered country into Roman territory, and so Colossae became a home for a lot of different groups. And of course, when people come to a new country, they bring with them their old culture and in most cases their religion as well. And so we know that Colossae was the home to everything from Greek mysticism to there was large Jewish community, and then something called Phrygian nature worship. Now, anytime that you have all of these different religions in one area, well, they can begin to influence the religious practices of other groups. And this apparently was what was happening for these early Christians in the church, and some of these pagan beliefs were beginning to kind of make their way into the worship of the Colossians. And so Paul wanted to address that from the beginning. He received some letters from some of his followers there among the Colossians. As well, there seemed to be some heresy rising up in just the basic Christian belief of the people there. And part of the problem again was that Paul didn't get there very often. And so you know what happens when people start sharing a message, like in a room, you tell one person the message, and by the time it gets to the end of the room, well, we all know it's changed. Well, imagine that within an entire church, within a large city. And that's what had happened there. And so the Christian message, the gospel message, had sort of been, tainted to the point that it was bordering on heresy, and so Paul wanted to address that. And so in this letter to the Colossians, he reemphasizes the basic teachings of Jesus Christ, who came and who was crucified on the cross, and he died. He was then resurrected on an Easter Sunday morning, that he was fully God and fully human, and now he is with the Father. Now, today we pick up in the 3rd chapter with the first just 4 verses. But in these 4 verses is a lot of Christology. And up until this point, Paul has sent his greetings. He has gone over his understanding of what the problems are there. And the first thing he talks about is what it means to die with Christ. And now he wants to talk about living in the resurrection. Because you'll remember that when we die with Christ, what we do is we get over this whole individualism thing, this it's all about me. And yet when we rise with Christ, then our whole focus is shifted to living in service to God and to others. That love of God and love of our neighbors becomes the whole focus of the Christian life. And this was important because many of these cultural influences, these other religious influences that were coming into the life of the Christian church there in Colossae were promoting this age-old philosophy of it's all about me, focusing on me. It's, that I'm working toward my own personal perfection. But yet we know that within the Christian message that who we are called to be are followers of Christ. We are called to be Christ-like. And so Paul is reminding these Colossians about the importance now of recognizing that we're to imitate Christ and we are to serve others as Christ serves us. So wonderful message that really does support our gospel reading from Matthew, which of course is the one I've said I'm going to preach on. I think this reading from Colossians goes a long way in helping us to understand how we live in this life where we share in the resurrection of the risen Christ. So, tomorrow, the Gospel of Matthew. Look forward to seeing you then. Have a great afternoon.